I'd like to introduce Marina Simultanos. Marina is really instrumental in making this event happen today. She's one of our volunteers, and she'll introduce Dr. Billings-Young.
Thank you so much, Catherine and Dawn, for helping make this happen. And thank you all for zooming in this afternoon to learn more about the issue, which could be quite beneficial and instrumental in rebuilding our city. With all that's happening in the country, it's more important today than ever to make sure that we continue to promote and protect democracy. As a group, United Power does that at the state and national level, but it's become increasingly clear that we need to do that same work locally, making sure that we're taking care of our collective backyard here in Portland. The Portland Charter Review Commission aims to create a more representative form of city government, very much a move to support small d democracy in our fair city. A couple of months ago, I had the opportunity to hear Dr. Melanie Billings-Young and my neighborhood association group about this with the speaker and a topic members of United Power would find compelling. So just a few words about her. She's a member of the 20-person volunteer Portland Charter Review Commission, which is a government-appointed body tasked with proposing amendments to the city charter. Professionally, she's an author, an international negotiation consultant, and a retired professor, having taught for 16 years at Portland State University, as well as at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government, Georgetown University, and colleges overseas. She's worked throughout Asia, North America, Europe, and the Middle East to help organizations and individuals resolve disputes and build more cooperative relations. For her work building cultural differences, she was awarded the 2020 Simon Benson Alumni Achievement Award. And she's bringing all of that experience to Portland, helping to improve the city that she and we call home. United Power is proud to host Dr. Billings-Young, who will present the commission's findings and recommendations for changes to Portland's charter. And I hope that you're as excited as I am to learn about the proposed changes, so we can pass along these details and discuss the matter with our friends and neighbors leading up to the November ballot. Now we'll have the presentation followed by ample time for your questions. And at this point, I turn it over to Dr. Billings-Young.
Thank you, Marina. That is such a kind introduction. Please call me Melanie. My whole name is ridiculously long, so it works better if we just stick to the short version. I'm going to share my screen. When I share my screen, I can't see you. And also, I'm an old enough dog that I can't talk and read chats at the same time. So Donald will kindly be passing any chats along to me. But I love questions. I don't mind hard ones. I'm very committed to what I'm about to talk. And so let's get going. All right. There. It's just taking me a minute to get all the moving parts set up. Okay, can you see the screen?
Yes.
All right, here we go. Okay, as Marina said briefly in her introduction, I'm a member of a 20-person volunteer commission. We were appointed about a year and 9 months ago to rewrite the Portland City Charter, which is like our city constitution. This charter has been in effect, this form of government, since 1913. Every 10 years, we have a commission that looks at reforming and reviewing that. And so this year I am part of that commission. And this year, given what we have heard from Portlanders, and you will hear this in a moment, this year we're looking at big change. So let me go through that piece by piece, and then I will happily entertain your questions afterwards. So the way we started out this project was not by saying, what do we want to change? But rather, what outcomes do we want? And those were based on the outcomes that we were committed to, as well as listening to thousands of Portlanders. We put great emphasis on holding public meetings, public listening sessions, talking to members of the current bureaucracy, educators, and so forth. And what we heard and what we believed were the most important outcomes to get were, first, participatory and growing democracy, and reflective representation, reflective of the people who live in our city, not just those who live around the Willamette River corridor. We also wanted the following things, and the reason I list them separately is because we've conducted a series of voter surveys, and this is what we also heard from the voter surveys. A government that is accountable. 93% of Portlanders surveyed listed that as a very important priority for them. A government that is transparent, effective, responsive, representative of all areas of the city, and equitable. And as you can see, those are things that 3/4 or more of our population all said those are the outcomes we are looking for. So we created a system that is designed to achieve those outcomes. Let's begin. Well, that's not working. Let's try page down. All right, nothing's working. Okay, that's not working at all. Just a sec. Okay. So we start by looking at our current governmental structure, which, as I said, was adopted in 1913 when Portland had a population of 200,000. Our system right now is what's called the commission form of government. It basically does not exist any longer. It may in some small towns, but in no cities of any size that would be called a city. By that system, we have 4 city councilors and a mayor, all elected at large in winner-take-all primaries and a general election, and they double as bureau commissioners. So the city councilors do not represent neighborhoods. They don't even represent the people so much as they are in charge of bureaus. I have written down here, just to give you an example. Right now, let's see, Joanne Hardesty is in charge of the Bureau of Transportation, Portland Fire and Rescue, Office of Community and Civic Life, Fire and Police Disability and Retirement, plus an additional 10 departments. So as we see, our elected officials spend most of their time trying to run the day-to-day operations of the city as opposed to representing the public and its needs. The problems also are, this leads to incredible bureaucratic siloization. One of the first meetings that we had were with the heads of the various bureaus and departments that were just under those city commissioners. And we heard again and again the problems that this had created, especially in a city that is now the size of 650,000 people, not 200,000. What they pointed out were things like that the Bureau of Emergency Management was under a different commissioner from the Bureau of Emergency Communication. And all of these different little silos prevented them from working with one another on problems that really overlap, such as homelessness, such as the trash problem. We have 10 different departments working on trash right now. In fact, in one of the meetings I had, I learned, because these were people who were working in the trash area, that there were 6 separate studies being done of the trash problem in Portland, but none of them were communicating with one another. They all have their own HR, they all have their own budgets, and they all are responding to a different city commissioner. And so there's a tremendous amount of infighting. No wonder we are unable to deal with those kind of big problems that we're facing today and the even bigger problems we're facing in the future with things such as climate change. In addition, the people that have been put in charge of those bureaus, our city commissioners, come in with no bureau expertise and really rapid turnover, because every 2 years, the mayor is able to decide, well, today you're in charge of the fire department, but next year, I think I'm going to put you in charge of water. When in talking to the public, the biggest complaint that we heard was no local representation, no local knowledge, and no accountability. This was especially true of people living east side of the river, and who, I might point out, make up more than 3/4 of our population. Other problems that are a little bit more, are still very fundamental, but are a little bit more structural, is that we elect people in primaries and then in a general election. The turnout in primaries is exceptionally low. And that can mean, and I have the numbers here in front of me, which I want to share with you. okay, that in, for example, in the the average in a primary turnout is about 40%. So in that turnout, 40%, 35 to 40% of the people will either decide who is elected, because if anyone gets more than 50% in that primary, they are elected, or who decides the two people that we are allowed to choose from. So just to give you a couple of really interesting examples, in the May 2022 primary, the turnout was 37%. So Dan Ryan won re-election by capturing 54% of the primary vote. If you look at that, he represented just 20% of the electorate, but was elected because of this system. The same can happen with runoffs. I don't mean to pick on Dan Ryan, it just makes two good examples. In the 2020 population, 46%, very high number actually, of registered voters cast ballots. Dan Ryan and Loretta Smith were the top two vote getters. They moved to the general. Their number combined was 35% of the vote. So in other words, if you look at that 35% and only 46% voted, 16% of our registered voters got to choose who would be the two candidates moving to the general election. The final problem with our current system is it gives tremendous advantage to wealthy or powerfully backed candidates. That's because all of the people are running at large. That means over the whole city. So that requires a lot of money. And it also means that those people with money, such as developers and so forth, can put that money behind the candidates of their choice, giving them a tremendous advantage.